Hi, I just completed setup and testing for my new Deep Sky Astrophotography rig, and I wanted to come in here and mention a few of the challenges that I face so that you can hopefully avoid them, or at least be aware that you might face them. The first challenge that I would like to highlight is with focus and the optical tube length. So to avoid this problem, I had purchased the Sharpstar Z4 telescope, which is actually an astrograph. So I don't really need to worry about the exact back focus distance, but that's really not the whole story when it comes to achieving focus. The first light with my telescope actually went pretty well. I started out with the main adapters that came with my ASI 2600 monochrome camera, and this worked well. There was no filter wheel. It just focused just fine. I captured pictures of the moon and some test images of stars. But as soon as I started adding the filter wheel and trying to add in my off-axis guider, I immediately realized there was going to be problems because, first of all, the guider, off-axis guider, and the filter wheel did not fit together properly, since one was made by ZWO and the other one was made by QHY. And it became clearly apparent that even with the adapters fitting the right distance, that I could not achieve focus. So I ended up having to drop the idea of having this off-axis guider in the scope. Instead, I went with a standard separate guide scope and guide camera, and I bought some adapters, as you can see here, and they fit in very nicely, and then I was able to achieve focus. The second challenge that I would like to highlight was the fact that I actually became impatient when I got some of my equipment, and I didn't have my Primaluz computer, which was running the whole setup, configured yet. So I decided to try to run the mount with my ASI Air, which I had from my previous telescope setup. You can see here is, if you don't know, it's a really tiny computer that's made by ZWO, and it's actually really awesome. You just plug in all your equipment into this, and it can just about run like a lot of different telescopes and mounts and other camera equipment, as long as it's ZWO related, at least for the cameras. And that works really well. But in this case, this was probably not the greatest idea, and I ended up ending in a weird state where the home point was not properly set for some reason. I don't know what happened with this, and I tried multiple times to reconfigure the home point in software, both in Nina and in the Ioptron software as well, and none of these things were working. I ended up having to go manually run things from the hand controller for the mount, and then reset the home point that way in order to get back into the proper home point configuration. So I guess the lesson is maybe don't be impatient, but yeah, just try to make sure that you're not swapping out gear in your setup and using things that may not be the best fit. The third challenge I would like to highlight is, again, swapping out equipment. So I decided that after getting the whole setup working with my Ioptron CM70 mount, that maybe I should try my setup with the ZWO AM5 mount, because I had heard that some people had been having good results running their setups with this configuration. So I swapped out my mount a few different nights and got things mostly working, but in the end there were some small challenges, and some of the guiding and other stuff was not working quite as well with the ZWO mount. So I decided to switch back to my Ioptron mount, and this actually did not go super great. Like things were misconfigured, and I ended up spending a night or two trying to get it back to work. I ended up having to reset all of the guiding and reconnect all the devices, and then finally I was able to get everything to work. The fourth challenge I would like to highlight is the cable length that comes with, for the cables that come with the devices from the manufacturers. So many times these cables are extremely long, so you can see that some of them are from like 3 feet, 6 feet, and one company even sent me a 10-foot cable when I really actually needed an 8 or 10-inch cable to connect that particular device. So what I ended up doing is I ended up going ahead and purchasing an entire set of new cables, and that were the right length. And this took a couple iterations because I wanted to be as tight as possible, and I ordered some of the cables a little bit shorter. But like if you're going with a new setup, I highly recommend that you get your initial setup up and working, and then you measure your cable length and go ahead and buy cables where necessary. I had issues with the long cables, like it's just very hard to do cable management with them, and even I think one of the times I had the cables get stuck on the mount, and things or frames were getting messed up, and I fortunately like noticed it and immediately stopped the mount from rotating. So like you can really get into situations where you can damage your equipment. So it's really important to get this one right. The fifth challenge I would like to highlight is with the setup of the ASCOM drivers for connecting devices to Nina. So I had never used Nina or ASCOM before, so I started installing the drivers, and then I realized I hadn't installed the ASCOM platform, and so nothing was able to connect, and I like was really banging my head in the wall, like what is going on? Even after I installed the platform, everything should be connecting. I realized that all of the drivers need to be installed after I installed the ASCOM platform, so I reinstalled the drivers on top of the platform, and then I was able to connect all of my devices into Nina. The sixth challenge I would like to highlight here has to do with Nina and plate solving. So when I got this full thing set up, I wasn't really following any instruction set. I kind of had a loose idea in my head of the steps I needed to follow to get my equipment to attach and to start taking images. What I didn't realize is that you have to configure the plate solver in Nina. So you can see that we have the Nina window open here, and when you go to options down here, and normally it'd be general here, but if you click down to plate solving here, you can see that there are different plate solvers available. So there's ASTAP, which has worked very well for me in my use here and my testing, and I tested. And then there's Astronomy.net, which is, I guess, kind of a backup here. And so like you have to come in here, and I believe I had to create an account for astronomy.net. I can't remember if there was any other setup steps for ASAP. But yeah, just be sure that before you try to take any images, you make sure you have a plate solver installed, or a lot of your slewing and centering and all your other functions like this will not be working properly. The seventh challenge actually highlights either my creativity or my lack of planning the details. So I wanted to test my setup with a Ethernet cable instead of the Wi-Fi, because when I bring this setup to the remote observatory, it's going to be wired in through Ethernet. And I didn't have a cable that was long enough to connect from my router to the computer outside. So I devised a set of Ethernet cables that I had, and I had a switch and a whole bunch of adapters, and I was able to wire all of these things together to reach all the way from my router to out all the way out to my computer outside, and was able to test my setup using this. So while I don't recommend this, it kind of worked, and it was only a temporary setup. So I'll let you take a judgment on that. So in summary, I would say you should probably plan ahead a little bit more than I did, as far as like some of the cabling and lengths go, and just the optical tube. Just be really focused on if you need to meet the exact back focus, or that's 55 millimeters, which is most common for a lot of telescope setups. Or if it's something else, like be sure you're aware of that, and make sure that you have the proper adapters for that length and the proper diameter of these adapters as well. All of these things can go wrong during your setup. And also maybe spend a little bit more time learning the software before you get started than I did, where I just kind of started and really didn't understand how some of the things worked, and I kind of had to work through those as I went along. So maybe find someone to mentor you, or just find a guide that will give you more precise details on steps. So yeah, overall, I'm happy with how this setup turned out, and I hope that these challenges that I face can help you avoid them when you go through the same process. Thanks for watching.